I want to welcome you to our last Talks on Tuesday of 2021, which is hard to believe. This webinar is our second webinar in our two-part series about the digital distraction. My name is Dana Childress. I'm one of the early intervention professional development consultants with our professional development team here in Virginia. I'm joined by Seth, Lisa, and Corey, some of my other team members that are providing backup. So we're happy to have, always glad to have our team. We have a great team supporting each other here. But I'm so glad you're joining us for our second webinar. I wanted to let you know, if you had missed the first one, part one, we would love for you to check it out. It is archived on our 2021 recordings Talks on Tuesday page. So Seth, if you don't mind dropping that link into chat, you can check this out. It's archived, so you could certainly go back and watch that if you didn't catch it last month. That was just from November. I wanted to make sure you knew about a couple of things on here. You absolutely have chat. Thank you, Seth, for putting that into the chat. Chat is your voice, so please feel free to use it to share your thoughts, your questions, your ideas, any insights you have today. Feel free to use that. Tracy and I'll both be monitoring the chat. We also have made the live captioning available, so you can hover at the bottom of your screen and turn on the live transcript, the closed captionings, if that would be helpful to you. So know that those are accessible. Let's see, I think that is it. You'll find, as you know, your mics are muted, cameras are off. Just the unmuted mics will be Tracy and I. We just do that to keep the distractions down. Speaking of distractions today, right? So just feel free to use chat and let us know. Let us know you're there so we can have a conversation today. So part one of our webinar did a really nice job of introducing a concept that was new to me called technoference. And I've done a lot of thinking about this, how technology interferes in our interactions. Tracy talked about the parent-child dyad and parent-child engagement and interactions. I know I have thought a lot about it as a parent, but also just as another person who's carrying around her phone constantly. Tracy talked about, is going to kind of continue that conversation today to help us think about sort of implications for the parent-child dyad, help us analyze bias that can show up, and we definitely have bias, many of us, around technology in early childhood, and help us think about how we can use reflective practice to build our professional practices to support families and reflect on where this shows up for us. I think personally, Tracy, you do some of that, but also as professionals working with families. I will tell you guys, I have figured out that I am an info junkie when it comes to technology. That's a phrase I heard and I was like, oh, that's me. So since Tracy's I love looking up things. Like if there's anything I want to know, I look it up. Not that it's always the accurate thing I find, but I love that accessibility to information. So since Tracy's first webinar, I found an app called Stay Free that I've just started using. It's a free app on my Android to help me look at digital well-being. Tracy will talk about digital well-being, so it'll help me track how much I'm using it. And I just think there's some good insights for my own reflection there. So I appreciate that, Tracy, to help me get interested in this topic as well. So before I introduce Tracy, I wanted to give a big thank you out to Hope Key. Hope is a developmental service provider with Easter Seals UCP, and Hope generously recorded a video of herself that we'll use today. You'll see later today. So we could hear a voice of an early intervention practitioner and how she talks with families about technology. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys know Hope, give her a quick thumbs up, give her a shout out today because we really appreciate her. All right, so we can go to the next slide, Tracy, and I'm gonna do a quick intro on Tracy and then I'll turn it over to her. So Tracy presented our digital distractions part one. Tracy's a new team member with the Office of Child and Family Services at the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. She's currently serving as our state's early childhood mental health coordinator. So we are really lucky to have Tracy and her expertise joining us and partnering with us in early intervention as well. So over the course of her career, Tracy has served children and families in public and private sectors, and she's worked diligently to engage the community with community partnerships to lift the needs of Virginia's children. She's currently on the board of the Virginia Infant and Toddler Mental Health Association and serves as a co-chair of the Central Chapter. I loved this, what you wrote, Tracy, that her passion is for advocating for the rights of children and views her work in infant and early childhood mental health as a disruptor of inequities for children in Virginia. I think inequities has certainly risen to the forefront with the pandemic. So I think you're well placed to support that work, Tracy. So we're really delighted to have you again. Tracy, it's been wonderful working with you. I'm going to mute and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dana. And I also want to take this opportunity just to thank all of my collaborating partners. I couldn't have done it without you, Dana and Seth and Corey and Lisa. I also want to thank Hope. She was an instrumental part in highlighting her voice as a representative for practitioners. There's also some children who are near and dear to my heart that lent their voice to this presentation today and made it just really drive home for me how important this topic is for all of us, and then their parent as well. So with that, we'll move on into the presentation. I do want to pause though and just say thank you for carving the time out of the busy work that you're doing, the important work that you're doing with children and families to take this time with us. And I also want to hold up the families and children in Michigan. I know we're all thinking about them. And I just want to highlight VCU's continued efforts at providing professional development so that we can deepen our understanding of both education and infant and early childhood mental health issues to support, promote, and prevent children from getting into those situations. So please keep them in your minds and your hearts. And then I will move on. So if you were not able to be with us last time, it's, as Dana says, no worries at all. These guys have archived all that information for you if you would like to look at it. But I will go ahead and just share some quick highlights or a quick review of what we talked about last time, because I think it's important to give you origin of thought and context of the concept. So as Dana mentioned, technoference is basically the concept in which I built the presentation around. And the definition of that is an interference that occurs in a relationship. And I primarily focused on the parent-child relationship, that parent-child dyad last time. When technology is interfering in that relationship, in that engagement of the relationship. But this is not limited to just the parent-child relationship. This could be husband and wife, partners. It could be with your colleagues. It could be with your students. It could be with the clients that you're serving. So this is a concept that really can be applied to many different relationships, but it's about that interference. Okay, so we just want to make that clear. It is a barrier in the relationship. So I'm going to start you out with a video, and I want you to use, I'm going to try to weed some reflective practice through this conversation with you. And one of the big things in reflective practice is observation. So I'm going to ask you to pull out your best listening skills, your best observation skills as we look at this video together.
We're back with our very good friend, Diane Sawyer. She has a new special. It's called Screen Time. Diane Sawyer reporting about something many are talking about. How much of our time do we spend on our screens? And Diane, reunited, hello. And it feels so good.
You've seen those stats.
Yes. 49 days on average.
9 days of our life each year spent on mobile phones on average. So we're looking at a month and a half of our life spent that way. And we are hearing over and over again, it's what started us on this, about the struggle in American families, parents to kids, relationships, everybody wondering what's happening with the science and our brains. What have we come? Is it something different? And most of all, I think everybody just wants the balance. Can we have the ease of our technology and have the fullness of our lives as well? We're going to show you something based on another stat, which is on average, we pick up the phone 80 times a day on average. And so some researchers wanted to know what that would mean in the lives of kids. Are they okay with that? Or is this something that they're paying attention to? And maybe, we don't notice when we're just home alone without the cameras.
A mom comes into a laboratory. She's asked to scroll and type and focus on her screen just for 2 minutes. The videotape showing something maybe adults don't see when we're home alone.
This is not about parent guilting because parents feel so torn and sometimes we have to get things done.
This is 2.5-year-old Jensen.
I think he's about to suss out that she's on the device.
It takes just 15 seconds for Jensen to start his campaign to get Mom Melissa to look up from that screen.
We have some other things we do, Mommy. We have some other things to do, Mommy.
And he just walks away. Yeah.
This mom is helping researchers replicate a study for us. She's doing something very difficult for her. Asked to keep looking down. And remember, just for 2 minutes.
Come on, Mommy.
He repeats the plea 7 times.
We have another thing to do, Mommy. Mommy! You go now. Listen to me, Mommy. Listen to me, Mommy.
And here is another fact about grown-ups and phones. On average, we unlock our phones 80 times a day.
Cell phones, I think, are qualitatively different than other forms of distraction because they're with us all the time. They're ubiquitous. They have been engineered to grab our attention.
In the old day, phones were chained to the wall, but today a child sees our heads go down, our eyes rivet on something or someone else.
What you have is that little sneak down. You've all noticed it at dinner conversations. And basically it means, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm pretending to talk to you.
And no one can be sure how long before your eyes look up again. This is little Hunter, who seemed to have learned when she has to compete with the phone, she might as well just give up.
She's sitting down and she's waiting. She knows her mother is not available right now.
When it was over,
Jency, come here. Give a hug.
Jensen's mom said it was a revelation.
I was actually really surprised at his reaction.
So did this mom.
I think you don't realize when you're at home in your own environment. I think I'll pay attention more now to not pick my phone up.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that kids under 18 months should avoid screens entirely, with the occasional exception of a few minutes of FaceTime with family.
I love you.
I really don't want to be guilt-tripping parents with the study or the implications, but I do want this study to be a wake-up call that face-to-face time we have with our children is not just the icing on the cake. It is the cake. It is the place that children learn the most about the world and about themselves.
I love you.
I love you.
Yeah, so to me, that's very powerful, a powerful video presentation. I just want you to take a second and just reflect on what feelings showed up for you, either as a parent or a caregiver or as a professional, as you saw that go on for these two children. I know for me, my palms are getting sweaty. My heart was racing a little bit. It was very difficult to watch, but I think it's important for us to take these kind of observations and reflect on what our feelings are about them. I'll move on. So one of the things I'd like to touch on that we had talked about last time was just some lessons learned, right? What are we learning from the technology? What are we learning from the research as we're looking at this vein of work with children and families? And what are our approaches going to be with the work? And I think that's critically important for us to think ahead about. One of the concepts that we talked about last time, and we're hearing this more and more, right? Thankfully, this is more ingrained in the work that we're doing every day, which is just identifying what are our biases. When we're working with children and families, our colleagues in the community, we touch a lot of lives. And so we need to be very mindful and very present when we are thinking about what biases do I carry into this relationship with the families and into the work. And so when we look at implicit bias, what that basically means is that we can be acting on stereotypes or already derived information we have in our head without even intending to do so. And so if we are doing that and we're not doing a self-check, then that is going to impede upon the relationships that we have with the children and the families that we're working with. So I do want to just make it known, as we all do know, right, that there are benefits to technology. And this is something that we discussed before, right? There's lots of benefits. One of the things we need to recognize as practitioners as we balance this concept of technoference and educating and bringing awareness to families is that this is a piece of the fabric of our daily lives now, where it's like Pandora's box. We're not going to put the phones or the tablets or the laptops back in a box and be like, oh, we're not using those anymore, I'm a changed person. Not going to happen, right? Because there are some really wonderful things about the technology. So I'm just going to go into what some of those are: communication, resources, and then organizational tools. And I know that all of us use those, some more than others, but it's something that we all use. So if we just looked at communication, take a second and just put in the chat, like, how do you use your phone or your technology? It doesn't just have to be your phone, but your technology to communicate with others. Just throw a word or two in the chat and let's see how this is coming up for everybody. Yep, we're texting and apps, Google Hangout, yes. Text and call, Snapchat, haven't tried that one yet. Text, schedule and calendar, oh yes, it's a savior. FaceTime, yeah, FaceTime has been a huge engagement piece for us since the pandemic, right? Pictures, social media messaging, Skype, yes. Memes, timers, oh yeah, Instagram. Translation, yes, that's a great tool when you really need it. So all of these are really work. WhatsApp, yep, for your friends and calling family, good. Yeah, I mean, these are several different modes of communicating, right, that we use. So this is just reinforcing some of the things that you guys already said. Email is a big one. Facebook and FaceTime has saved us over COVID. Twitter and Instagram. So all of these are like really important tools. And then we have things that we would put in the category of resources, like shopping. How many of us are not on Amazon right now? News, recipes, pediatricians, right? These kinds of tools are a real time saver for us right now, because in the old days, as now I'm old enough to say, if I needed a pediatrician, my options were, right, to get in my car, ride around, like, this pediatrician's here, let me go in and talk to them, let me learn a little bit about their practice. Or if you were looking for news, you're gonna go get the newspaper, you're gonna, go out, you can go to the grocery store, the local store and get that. Education was the same thing, right? There weren't all these reviews about schools or childcare or programs that you wanted your child in, whether it's extracurricular or whatnot. You would actually have to go, and I still highly recommend going, get in there and look. But you can do a quick review and you can find what's in your area, right? The accessibility, the affordability, the philosophy. But these are great resources that we don't want to live without, right? We don't want to live without. This is just about making our practice more mindful. Organization, yes, as professionals and as family members, how helpful this is. Type in some ideas in the chat, like what organizational tools are you using to get through your day? And I know we've increased these, yes, Class Dojo, medical folks, yes, lists, reminders, any list. Oh, I have to look that one up, Dana. I don't know that one. Reminders, calendars, alarms, Google Tasks, yes. And right now, how would we be getting through life without these? We're still mostly in Zoom world. Alarm clock, timer for visits. That's a great one, Joanne. Yes. Calendars. So this really keeps us on track. Stay free. I am going to look that one up, Dana. That digital well-being. We need to all look that up. But this really does help us, especially when we are not in face-to-face contact with our colleagues right now, and in some places are still doing Zoom visits with children and families. These are great options for organization, right, to keep us on track. Scheduling, community activities, bill organizers, agendas. So all of these are just great tools for us to keep us organized, keep us moving. So those are all really great benefits. Now, here was the moment for me. I realized in putting this presentation together that you can kind of do a self-check, right, in terms of your use on your cell phone. And I'm sure there's a way to do this on your computer. I didn't unravel that, but I did do it just in terms of the cell phone. So there's lots of different ways to do this. Now we all have different cell phones, and so they're all going to interact with us a little differently. I happen to have an Apple. So, you know, if I were to pick up my Apple phone and then I just like swipe, I think it's to the right here, this thing will tally up for me how much I've been on my phone. You guys can't see that, how much I've been on my phone today. So it tells me I've been on my phone today 1 hour and 21 minutes today. And you know, we're at the noon hour. So there are days that I've been on it more than that. There are days that I'm about this level of the phone use. So Androids work a little differently. I know I learned from Dana that there is a wellness, a well-being app that you can look at on the Androids. That Stay Free app Dana was talking about earlier. I think that's another tool you can utilize. So I just highly recommend, just for your own awareness, to look at one of these tools, one of these apps, and just say, how much am I using my phone? Like, I don't feel like I use it that much, or maybe I am using it too much. But this will give you an idea about how you're doing. So I'm going to move into now really the next part of the presentation, and looking at the 4 different areas that are really, in my mind, intersecting with technology for the sake of this presentation. So one of the things, of course, that is intersecting with this is, you know, the children, right? That's what it's all about, right? The children, and how our relationships with the children are intersecting with technology. Also the caregiver or parent or whatever responsible adult is helping to raise or grow a child. And practitioners, right? Those of us that are in the professional roles and responsibilities of serving children and families. And then the strategies. What kind of strategies can we intersect with technology for the benefit of children and families as we're doing our work each day? So let's try to unpack it a little bit. So I thought it would be important not just to hear my voice, because that's one thing, but really to hear other important stakeholders in how this technology is really impacting others around us. And so I'm going to start with who's always in my mind is the child. So I'm going to start with the voice of the child. So I just want you to sit back and just take a look and a listen at this brother and sister duo and what they really have to share about their observations of parents using their technology.
They're just on their phones. That's true. And like we try playing, but we wish they would play with us.
Yeah, so you try playing, but you're waiting and you're kind of wishing they'll play with you?
Yeah. And my dad is watching these videos.
Yeah, what kind of videos does he like to watch?
Like kind of the show I made, like videos like that.
So sometimes they're on their phone and it's annoying.
Yeah, because they're not doing anything important.
Gotcha. And then sometimes your parents are on the phone and they're doing something with you. Is that right, August?
Yeah.
Like your video when you make a movie?
When I make, well, like they're like showing me pictures or we're making videos, but I just make the show. I just ask my mom, may I please have your phone? And then I just make it.
Gotcha. So what do you guys usually do when your parents are on the phone?
We try to ask them if they would come play with us. But only if it's not important.
Gotcha. And how do you know if it's something important or not important?
Because we can see my dad's phone if it's important. Like, my mom's always doing things important, but my dad's not really doing that. She's not always. Besides, sometimes all she's doing is calling her friends. Besides, she needs to call her friends. She sometimes, she does something important for our cousin. She wants to call them on the birthday.
That's a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Right. So do you think you'll have a cell phone when you grow up?
Yeah. Not like a cell phone, a telephone.
Like a telephone?
Just the iPhone.
Like an iPhone, okay. And then if you have children, how do you think you'll use your phone?
I won't use it as much, and I'll only use it if it's something very important.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, right? And I will just say these children were not rehearsed. As you know, if you have young children in your life or you work with young children, you couldn't get it down like that, even if you tried to. These are some of my neighbors and children that I just cherish, and we have a really good relationship. And, with permission of Mom, who thought this was a really important project, she allowed me to interview the children. And I just thought they did such a beautiful job of sharing their feelings and really given a very astute observation of what is happening when their parents, who are very loving and attentive parents, what happens when they're on their technology. I know that some of the themes that came up for me as I was looking at the video when I was putting this together was there was this recurring, we want them to play. Right? We want them to play with us. And we have to remember that play is the work of young children. It is their work. And it is also the way that we build a relationship with our children. So as parents of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, if we want that open and sincere, authentic relationship when they're 13, we got to get it right now. We've got to be paying attention, right? So finding these balances during this time of heavy technology is critical for us as parents and for them as children, and for us as practitioners to just be aware to share the information. So I'm going to go on. Oh, I'm so sorry. So this is their mom. She's just beautiful. Camera shy, but she did give me a statement. She was telling me that she knows the children really dislike it when she's on her phone, but that it's really hard because the phone goes everywhere that they go. Unlike our tablets or laptops or what have you, that phone is in our bag, it's in our pocket, it's in our hand, it's everywhere. And so she says sometimes she's checking in on different things, and it does feel both stressful and overwhelming when the children are trying to compete for her attention when she is on her device. Now, in the first presentation, we talked about Radesky's research. And one of the things that I learned the most in doing the research for the presentations was that Radesky says one of the biggest things that we need to walk away with is that when parents are absorbed, and that was the word that was used, it was technology absorption. When parents are absorbed in their devices, they are more agitated and they present more harsh responses to their children when they're interrupted. So a parent who may never use a harsh tone with their child otherwise, if they are interrupted during a time when they are really absorbed in an email, whatever, a text, whatever tool they're using, they can present in a very harsh manner. So I think that's something that we should recognize and share. And also, if you weren't with us, please go back and look at that research. It's really important. Next, we're going to hear the practitioner's voice, because you guys are boots on the ground. You guys are doing this every day with children and families, right? So we want to make sure that we have good messaging and thoughts to go in with families as we're working with them to share the awareness. Okay, so let's hear from Hope. And Hope, thank you again so much.
Hi, I'm a developmental services provider, and I wanted to share how I discuss technology with families. First, I start off the conversation by talking about how children learn in early childhood, which is mostly through play and social interactions. Then we talk about how technology can create moments of isolation where the child can withdraw and be on their own. Then we problem solve how can we use technology as a tool for learning. Some of the ideas that I've come up with families in the past is to mute YouTube videos so that the caregiver or the parent is the voice narrating what's happening in the video, or to maybe download electronic copies of books or even free apps that have pictures so that the family and the child can talk about the pictures or read through the books while still using the technology. So that we begin to use technology as a tool so that the child can still enjoy it and it's not taken away from them, but they're no longer in isolation when using it.
So Hope just unpacked some really incredible things in that short video clip for us. She did an amazing job. One is she's really showing us how to identify the need, right? What is the need for this family in terms of this information? And then secondly, like how to problem solve it with the family, right? How can I problem solve this with the family? This seems to be a need to give them some information. Now, one of the things I really love that kind of ties back to that reflective practice that we should always try to use as much as possible in the thread of our work is she is meeting the family where they are in that parent and child dyad, right? She's meeting them where they are. This simple strategy that she's talking about, I say simple, it's really not, but there's one strategy that she's talking about where she says, mute the sound, like if you're watching a story, and you read the story with the child, that's genius, right? That's genius. And that is not setting up the parent to feel like they're failing because they're allowing their child to watch this, or it doesn't make them feel as though they can't change the behavior if they want to change their behaviors and strategies with their child. She is meeting that family where they are and she's saying, hey, here's an idea, try this one. You know, they can still see the visual and you can do the words. And that's just really a dance that practitioners can engage in with families that make all the difference, right? Because if we go in judgy or we don't check those implicit biases that we may have at the door, what's going to happen is we're going to shut down that relationship. We're going to shut it down. And then the awareness that you want to bring to the topic is just not going to be visible or approachable for that family. So it's just something that we want to keep in mind as we're working with children and families. Oops.
Hi, I'm a
So
developmental
sorry.
services.
So I just want to take a look at, you know, I keep bringing up the reflective piece of this and how critical it is in the work. And I know many of you are already trained in reflective supervision. If you're not and you're interested, many of us can help you get information about that. But really what we're looking at is that it's an important activity in which we kind of recapture the experience of what is happening before us. We think about it, we mull over it, we evaluate it, and then we just use it in our work, right? To help guide the family or the child and the family through the work that we're trying to do with them. So if you go online and you're looking at reflective supervision visual models, there's a million that you could use, right? There's a million that you could use. But this one I thought is like just a down and dirty, quick visual model that we can all kind of keep in our head, because when we go to work with children and families, we have a long laundry list, right, of things we want to think about. Maybe they're on the back burner, maybe it's something we need to speak with the child and family about this day, but this is just like a simple 3-step. So it's kind of like the what, the so what, and the now what. And when we're looking at the what we're really talking about is identifying the need, or if there's a concern on a professional level, something that we need to address or share with the family, right? And then the so what. So we get beyond that what, and we're looking at the so what. That is, whom is this need impacting, right? Who is it impacting? It's impacting this child and the family, right? So we want to be very clear about the so what. Who is this impacting? And then once you identify that, then now what? I know what the need is. I know who it's impacting. Now, what am I going to do about it? What, as a practitioner, educator, whatever discipline you're coming from, what can I do about this information? How can I give the parents some information? And how can I reflect with the parent to like gain their insight and their voice into what is important for them as a family? So reflective practice. Two of the things that I think, if nothing else, that you really think about is, one, understanding that family story. When you walk into the home of that child and that family or that caregiver, understanding the family story. Where are they coming from, right? Where are they coming from? And then holding the baby and child in mind as you are delivering information, as you are engaging in information. What does this child or this baby bring to this dynamic, right? So maybe this family before could use their technology unlimited. They didn't need to think about it, right? Maybe it's a single parent. It was just her or him, and they were just using their technology. But now that we have a child, what does that baby bring to that relationship with the parent and the technology, and for the child? So one of the things that really comes up here that is extremely important is professional attunement. I'd like you just to drop in the chat, how do you get attuned, right? How do you get present with the families that you're working with? How do you demonstrate that professional attunement when you go to visit families? Just drop something in the chat for me so we can all hear everybody's voice. So when we want families to know that we are attuned to what they're saying, what they're thinking, yes, Lauren, your position. Reflect on what they're saying, yes, like do some nodding, right? Reflect on what they're saying. Good eye contact, good Bailey. That is so important, right? Making sure that they see us. Active listening, critical. And that's really hard for most of us to do because our head is so full. Reflect, keep technology away. Yes, eye contact, active listening and eye contact again. Ask questions and ask for clarification. That's so important, right? Revisiting something that they say so that we're not making an assumption, because that's so easy to do when we're working with parents and children. So some of the things that, I was reading about that you guys reflected on was the body language, the eye contact, leaning in and out of conversation. This is a real nuance, and I think people become more and more seasoned in this as we work with families, right? We want to know that we can lean in both physically and metaphorically when a parent is sharing something with us. But there's also an important skill of leaning out. And that really comes from true engagement and attunement. Because if you see a parent start to, kind of lash up, I know sometimes if I get nervous or anxious, I'll get a little red on the chest, or if their body language changes, their eye contact changes, right? We need to pay attention to their exploratory space. Like, are we going too far into this conversation for where we are? Should we just kind of pull out for a minute? Maybe it feels really intense for the parent at the moment. So leaning in and out is critical. Assess how big it is. I think I said this about the exploratory space. Is this a parent that you can kind of cover a good amount of information with, or do you just want to drop a nugget about, tell me a little bit about technology in your home. Do you guys use what do you use? Do you use television? Do you have a laptop? Do you have your phone? Just kind of getting some information, right, about the context of the family and what they are currently doing. And how much are they willing to listen to at that moment? And then this is really key too, safety and pacing of information, right? We don't want to like stuff this down a parent's throat or a caregiver's throat. Like, you should never do this. Like, never do this. Like, put your phones and tablets away. And that is just unrealistic. That's unrealistic, I think, for the majority of families and caregivers, right? We want to pace our information. We want to talk about maybe things that are truly safety issues, but you want to like prioritize the kind of information and the speed at which you're sharing the information. And that also means when I talk about the pacing, maybe you share a little bit this week, and maybe in 2 weeks you give them another nugget or a visual to go with the information. But we don't want to try to give them like an hour's lecture on, which I know you never do, on technology. And then really working hard at establishing that skill of connection, right? Looking for those, those firefly moments when you see their eyes light up, like, oh, I get that, yes, I see that I do that. Or no, actually, I'm really good about that. That's something that I'm very careful about. That's going to take that attunement to like build that connection and then sustain that connection. And that's when we know as practitioners, right, we've hit the sweet spot, both for you and your parents and caregivers that you're working with. So let's just look at like entering into the conversation, right? So again, it goes back to that pacing and safety piece of things where we want to make sure that we are making this a safe space, that it's a comfortable space. After all, what we're trying to do is just raise awareness and give information for the families. So we don't want to rush in to a big conversation with the families in that, we're kind of overwhelming them, I guess I would say. So let's look at some conversation starters that might be hopeful to everyone. One of the things you could do is just say, tell me more about, right? And give them an opportunity to tell you about how they're using some technology. Can you think of other ways that might be a good conversation starter that you could throw in the chat? Like when you feel like this might be a sensitive topic or it's just a new topic, what are some ways you might start that conversation so that it's not so awkward or difficult when you are starting to bring the conversation into that relationship? What are some openers that you might use with a family? How does your family? That's a great one, right? You take the judgment right out of that. I'm wondering, oh, Corey, you're using my W word. I love the W word. It opens it so completely. What do you know about? What do your mornings look like? Oh, that's great. What does it look like when y'all are blah, blah, blah? Yes, that's a great one. So really just making it no shame, no blame here, right? That's not what we're about. We're just trying to raise awareness and give information. And again, we don't want to shut this conversation down. So Corey, I told you my wondering word, I love it. And I have to give Judith Martins all the credit for that. She taught me all about wondering. So I'm wondering is another one that I would use. Help me understand. If you use help me understand, you just have to make sure that that is paced correctly, that you watch your tone when you say it. It is a great way to get information, but we also don't want to get into parental mode with families and caregivers that we're working with. Like, oh, help me understand this. You really have to watch your tone and delivery with that one. So if that would be hard for you, just use another one. Something you said earlier reminds me, one of the most beautiful things I think that can happen to us is when a family brings it up first. Maybe they just say, my phone's been ringing off the hook all day. And then that just opens that doorway just a little bit, right? And you can say, something earlier you said reminds me of this. I've been talking to a lot of families about this. And I think it's always very inclusive in nature to let them know, this is information I'm sharing with all families. I've been learning about this myself, so that they don't feel singled out or pointed out about something that maybe they will interpret that they're doing wrong. So again, with that professional attunement, we want to discuss the media use. These are some of the things that you would want to be mindful of just in the context of their daily routine. Like, what does TV or tablet or phone look like during the day at your house? Do some experimenting. You can say to the parent, have you tried a morning without? I'm wondering what would happen if you tried a morning without the YouTube cartoon. And just to see like what that looks like. Or have you tried putting your phone on silence? I'm wondering what would happen if you just silenced it for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, wherever you feel like that family could start. And then encourage for the parents and caregivers and ourselves as practitioners, it's okay to do single tasking. And I feel like we have lost the art of this because we are so locked into our technology. It's difficult. I can be working on a document and my calendar is going bling, bling, bling. And then my mind is on the next thing, right? Which disrupts like the quality of what I might be adding into what I'm working on in the moment. So encourage those families like, hey, it's okay just to do things one at a time, when you can, at least say when you can, and just put that caveat in there. Help them find replacement strategies for regulatory uses of media, right? Help them build routines around what it could look like, what they might want to think about in their home with their children and family. And then practical ways, giving them practical ways, right? We can come in with lots of theory. We can come in with lots of educational pieces to share with them. But really, we want to think about how can we give them practical things that when you leave out the door, when I leave out the door, is this something that is manageable for them? I'd like you just to put in the chat, what is one practical tip you might share with a parent to reduce their technology? And I know you all have them. I think this is really important that we look at something that is a takeaway for the parent. We can leave visuals, we can give them theory and theory of change and all kinds of information, but really just looking at how they can do something that's just common sense. Having family meals without phones. Yes, that's a great one, Katie. Pick one time a day to not use technology. Leave phone in another room. Yes, just forget about it for a minute. And then set a time on your calendar for playtime. Yes. Is there a time in your day that you could carve out 10 minutes for floor time? Yes, the timer is a great tool. And yes, asking about sleep patterns and starting there. Absolutely. Absolutely. These are great strategies, guys. And some you're just going to see repeated. Create a tech-free hour, right? So maybe after dinner from 7 to 8, there's no technology for anybody, right? We're catching up on the day. We're doing bath time. We're doing bedtime. And we're not having the interference. Phones in the middle, right? This applies to all age groups, right? If you have a phone or a tablet, and I know many children who have a tablet. So when we're ready to play a card game, like replace some kind of behavior, with a game or a conversation, put your devices in the middle, right? I've even been to restaurants where they say, if you put your phone in the box, we give you half off on your beverages. And there's a box in the middle of the table, and it just makes so much sense, right? And then you get to have like a real conversation without distraction. And then monitor your phone use, like we talked about before, just those simple self-check apps. Some are built in, some you'd have to download, but these are really practical tips for families. And then, just trying to exit out of some of the technology. Again, it's just about being mindful. We don't want somebody to say to us, oh, I'm going to stop cold turkey, because none of us can. None of us can do that, right? So we just want to reflect on how can we reduce. Some people say you could create a digital fast. So you maybe go 15 minutes with no technology. It depends on where that family is. Meet them where they are. Digital abstinence, I'm going to say good luck. Although this is a promoted approach, I think that would be very hard, as dug in as we are and as tied in as we are to both our work and our, our personal engagements through our technology. You could start with like a specific app detox. I have deleted my Facebook app before, and I will tell you that I did go probably a month or so without that, and I did read more, I did garden more, but I did find myself missing that engagement, right? That maybe right now I can't get on a day-to-day. And it's also helped me get to know people better. So it does have its benefits, but you could do a detox of a couple of apps on your phone and maybe prioritize which ones are the most important. And then ask your friends and family for support. You can even create a challenge, right, with your best friends and say, hey, let's do a challenge to see how long we can go without blah, 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 whatever it is, FaceTime, Instagram, Snapchat, whichever those would be. Sometimes just having that support, or even just saying to your families, hey, I'm really trying to reduce my phone calls and interference with my children between 6 and 8 o'clock. Could you help me out? If you need to text me or call me, please do it, before or after that time. Even that would make a huge difference. And then again, adopting those replacement behaviors. Maybe you take an extra walk with your children. Maybe you get out some board games that you haven't played in a long time. Wiggle in that floor time that you guys were mentioning before. And even things like just getting out in nature. I heard this week, or was reading this week, someone had said, even if you're outside, I think it was like 120 minutes a week, just to take a walk or walk through the forest, it increases your mental health and your overall wellness. So, if you break that down, like over the course of 7 days, it's not a lot of time. So just finding replacement behaviors for the use of your technology. There's also things called forest baths, where people just like immerse themselves in nature. They go into the woods or a heavy green area, and they just feel different when they come out. And I have like just an alley that's like grown up. It's just all greenery that I do that. And I do try to do that. And I do feel somewhat different if I spend enough time. So replacement behaviors are really important. And we already covered the one about spending time outside. So all of the information that we have, the education, the experience, you guys are very seasoned in your disciplines. We can have so many theories of change. We know about neurodevelopment. We know all the good and right things to support children. But if we can't create practical steps for families that they can take hold of and actually put into place, then I'm wondering what good is that information to them? And so we need to look at lots of different modalities about how we share information. Use that personal professional attunement with your families and caregivers when you're sharing information. Use visuals, use articles, get to know those families. Remember, we want to know as much history as we can about that family and where they're coming from in that reflective practice, so we know how to best help them to grow and to support their child. So when we look at that, we want to walk out of that relationship or just walk away from the day with a plan, right? And it cannot be our plan. It has to be the plan for the family. Like, what are they thinking would be helpful? First of all, as a practitioner, one of the things we really need to be thinking about is, do they want to look at this as an intended benefit for their family? And as much as we may want it, if a family doesn't feel like this is a need, we need to consider that, right? But let's say we share this information, we raise the awareness, and then they're on board. They want to get more information, and they do want to work with some replacement behaviors or change some of the rituals or routines that are going on in their house. How can they do that? It can be something this simple, just like, what's your values? How can we get you there? And how can we put it into practice, right? So if you really value going outside with your child each day to play, How do we get there? So if you're distracted by too many texts or emails from work that are coming into your house, just say, I'm putting this phone down for 45 minutes. And then how we're putting that into practice is, hey, mommy just put her phone up. It's just time for me and Elliot. And then we just go outside. That's putting it into practice. And then the other important piece of this, like I said, is to revisit it with the family. Did that work for you? How did your plan work? Because after all, it has to be something that will fit in the context of their family, because my family looks different than your family and their family. So it has to be a realistic plan. It has to be a plan they're comfortable with and that is meaningful for them. And then that is something that we can follow up with them. Say, how did that feel for you? Use those good attunement skills, that reflective practice. How did this change things for your child? What did you notice? I'm wondering how you felt about it at the end of the day. So really leaving that family with something that they can take with them and something that they can use over time with your expertise guiding that process. Because although we may be the expert, and I hesitantly use that word, in the information, right, and in the education, they are the expert on their family and on their child. And so their voice is so important, and we must respect and appreciate that in our daily work with them. And then this is just my last slide to wrap up, and I think it's a really important one to consider, which is what we do in life echoes in eternity. And so hopefully our work as practitioners, when we share this kind of information or we bring something to a state of awareness for families, it will make the difference in the life for that child and in that family's perspective. It will also empower them, empower the family to realize that they can change things that they would like to. And with that, I just really appreciate all of the hard work that you're doing for the children across the state of Virginia. I appreciate all the collaborating partners, and I would just encourage all of us to continue to do good work in hard times.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Another fantastic presentation. I appreciate it. And boy, you ended in just the right time. Your timing was perfect. We're going to hang out for a couple more minutes, you guys, and let us know if you have any questions for Tracy or any comments in the chat. Feel free to use those. As we're wrapping up, I want to make sure you know it's probably might even be already in your inbox. Please look out for a survey from us where you can provide us some feedback. We love your feedback and we really do use it to consider our future Talks on Tuesday webinars. So share your feedback, and once you complete the survey, you will be given access to your certificate of participation. If you're in the office and you're there participating with more than one person, you can forward that survey email to the other folks who are joining the webinar as well. Also wanted to let you know to stay tuned for our next Talks on Tuesday webinar series. Will be in February and March, and Lisa can help me out in the chat. I believe our next series is about reflective practice, so it's a nice segue from what Tracy talked about today. Lisa's also dropped into chat our social media links where you can learn more. Thank you, Lisa. You can learn more and follow us with our activities so you get notifications when registration and all pops up. Lisa says our next webinar is about reflective capacity and reflective practice. So I think we'll be keeping the discussion going about that reflection as professionals. So that'll be coming to you soon. It'll be available on our website with registration probably about mid-January. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, there's lots of thank yous popping up in the chat, Tracy. I think, thank yous to you for the great information. Julie says, another great presentation. Thank you. So I want to thank you, Tracy, for all of your time the last 2 months and all of your efforts to put this together. I'm really grateful for all the time you put into here, and really appreciate it. I told you I've grown and I'm reflecting on my own tech use. So this has been a learning opportunity for me as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana, and to all of the partners at VCU, and again to Hope. Really appreciate all of your contributions.
Definitely. So we will stay on for one more minute, but if you guys have any thoughts or any questions, feel free to type them into the chat. If you don't, you're free to go, and we will hopefully see you online again. I believe our next webinars are February 1st and March 1st. So hopefully we'll see you online again after the new year. So happy New Year, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, guys.